Now broadcasting from the Next Gen Conservative Studio in sunny South Florida, bringing you the latest in politics, current events, and pop culture. This is the Whitfield Report with Sam Whitfield.
Alrighty there, folks. Good evening and welcome to the Whitfield Report. We are live now, I guess. So good to see everyone here tonight. Thank you for everyone who is tuning in wherever you are in the past, present, future hour. And folks, before we begin tonight's show, I would like to apologize for the confusion regarding Monday's show. For those who don't know, on Monday I was supposed to have Jed Ravenwolf, who is a YouTuber, and he does a lot of kind of pop culture and also technology news. And we were going to cover more of the Restrict Act that is before Congress, and that is the bill before Congress I mentioned that would restrict TikTok from the U.S., but also basically be like the Patriot Act, but for the internet. So just a lot of bad stuff. So we were going to talk about that on my channel, but then he had technical difficulties with Rumble, so he couldn't do it, and we ended up doing it on his channel. But the thing is, he's out in Arizona where it's like 3 hours behind us, so 9 p.m. my time is only like 6 or 7 his time, and we ended up doing it at like midnight my time on his channel. So there was a lot of confusion. I'm glad he had me on, and I really appreciate him having me on, kind of as his first, like official political, stream / guest. But because of the confusion, I'll be, I apologize for that. That was, on my end partially. But we have tonight's show, but then I will also be doing a pre-recorded podcast on Friday that's going to be a review of John Wick, part 4. So that ought to be good. Check that out if when that comes out. And if you haven't already seen John Wick 4, I highly recommend you guys check it out because it's really good. And I'll be doing a in-depth review on that on Friday. Spoilers and all. All right. So anyway, with that underway, since we have the housekeeping out of the way, let's dive into the show. After I send out the I just sent out the tweet for that the show is live, so but yeah. So anyway, now that is all out of the way, let's dive into the big thing that everyone is talking about this week, and that is Trump's arraignment. And that whole rigmarole. Basically, as far as I can tell, this is a show trial. I mean, we know that was kind of the case from the beginning, but it's proven to be a show trial. Even if Trump is somehow found guilty because of this, they're not going to send him to jail. He's not going to be doing time in Sing Sing prison because of this. This is political theater that the Democrats are doing right now to try and make him look bad. They want him gone. They want him out of the picture. Simple as that. And they knew that Trump wasn't going to go away after the 2020 election. They were hoping that he would just, be quiet and kind of ride off into the sunset. But Trump's not doing that. So they, they had to literally, if you'll pardon the expression, Trump up something to make him seem like he's a bad guy. So, now they've got this bogus, campaign, I guess, finance charge. Apparently, here's the thing that confused me about this. This whole thing with the campaign finance thing is allegedly tied to Stormy Daniels in that incident, which we already went over that like 2 years ago, folks. The Stormy Daniels thing, not only was that a nothing burger, but she actually had to pay him money for slander. She owes him like $500,000. And let's face it, she's not in her prime of porn anymore. So I don't think she's going to be like getting the the big contracts in porn, so to speak. It's just not going to happen. So if this whole thing was tied to an incident that never happened, then why are the Democrats even doing this in the first place? Well, let's break this down a few ways, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Because the Democrats, they have the entire left has constructed this narrative since 2016 that Trump is the worst person to ever live. The literally Hitler memes, that may be satire and parody to us somewhat, but there are people out there who literally think that Trump is worse than Hitler, or that he's exactly like Hitler. And those that don't on the left, those that know that he's not, they want to make other people think that he's literally Hitler. So what are they going to do? They're going to try and turn him into a literal criminal and, at least get his mugshot out there so that, people People can say, oh, Trump's got a mugshot. Mugshot equals criminal and criminal equals bad. Well, that's not going to work. Because, like I said, what Trump is being charged with, which is campaign finance, that's been tied in with the whole Stormy Daniels incident. That shit never even happened. So, it's just not. The whole case is bogus, but they don't care because the image of Trump being a criminal is, that's what matters to them. If they can sell the image that Trump is a criminal, then in their minds, if they can convince America that Trump is a criminal, then they won't vote for him. So that's reason number one. They want to demonize Trump as a criminal. And also, they need to demonize Trump as a criminal because deep down, folks, they know that Joe Biden has nothing to run on as president. Okay? Let's break this down. But before we do that, Mega News Network super chats with $1, saying, is Trump Sam's real dad? Why won't Trump help his son Sam? I wish, Mega News Network, I wish that were sometimes the case, because that would be awesome. Although my dad is pretty great in and of himself. We have some political disagreements, but my dad can be pretty good, and my stepdad is also based as fuck. But yeah, no, I if Trump was my real dad, that would certainly be interesting, to say the least. Resisted says, the more people make him into a martyr, the more people will love him. Right, you are. It's not just that though. Resized, you do bring up a good point. So as I was saying, Biden has nothing to run on, and that's the second reason why they need this prosecution to go through. Okay? They need Donald Trump to be prosecuted because Biden has nothing to run on. From his first year in office, starting off with the Afghanistan withdrawal, that was a complete disaster. A 20-year war we were in, which, we can debate whether or not going into Afghanistan and Iraq, were good decisions or not. I know that my audience is kind of split on that. But irregardless of how you feel about the Bush era of Iraq and Afghanistan or Obama's era of Iraq and Afghanistan, the simple fact remains that the way Biden handled the evacuation in Afghanistan was a disaster. And that is undeniable. Then you have, COVID, which, some of the leftists again were trying to blame Trump for that too, which I don't know how you can, because that's a virus from China that Trump was not responsible for, and his handling of COVID was as good as could be. Biden just wanted to impose even more, restrictions regarding COVID. I guess they just officially ended the COVID national emergency last week, which I didn't know that we were still in a state of emergency with COVID because, well, I live in Florida where it's, where we've been open for business for, the past couple of years now. But also, um, the fact that the national state of emergency took this long to wrap up, it's just bullshit. Over a nothing virus. Yeah, that's right. I said it. COVID-19, while can be serious to some, by and large, it the media, the fear surrounding COVID was more deadly than COVID itself. And Biden did nothing, good to handle that. Like the vaccine didn't get distributed any, faster under Biden. In fact, that was all Trump's dealio, if you want to be honest. Race relations, you know, they said that, if Biden would get into office, it would be the second coming of Obama, and race relations would get way better. A the race relations got way worse under Obama, but they've gotten even worse under Biden. And then, oh, not to mention, we could be going into war with Ukraine under Biden because he's too, Russia does not respect Biden at all like they do Trump. Or I should say, they don't fear him like they do with Trump. And, so we could be getting into another war under Biden. Lovely. And then last but certainly not least, this could arguably be the most important thing. The economy is the worst it's been in my lifetime. This actually this recession makes the 2008 recession look like a joyride compared to this. It's just not good at all. So in Biden has nothing to run on, but because of that, again, the Democrats need to fall into the thing of, well, Biden might not have done much, but look at Trump. He is a little criminal. So we need to make him, we need to prove that Biden's worse by prosecuting him. So let's see. Mega News Network for $1. Sam's legs are strong and true, yet he pretends that they're weak for you. On his show, he acts the part and wins a place in your heart. Well, Mega News Network, my I am crippled in the physical sense, I will say that. But you know, I do stand for Trump and I do stand for America. And so in that sense, you're right. I do stand in that sense. So yeah. But anyway, so The witch trial of Trump really started this week. They made a big show of, um, arraigning him, particularly like uh, on Tuesday afternoon. They made a big show of Trump arriving in New York, and the motorcade got cordoned off. CNN was saying that there was something like 30 thousand NYPD officers, uh all cordoned off around Trump Tower. Literally 30,000 of them, just to make sure that Trump could get from Trump Tower to the New York courthouse. Which is funny because the last time I checked, ladies and gentlemen, the are we getting a little bit of lag on people's end on the stream? It looks like it's lagging a bit on my end a bit. So let me know in chat if the stream is coming through. If not, I'll check the settings real quick. And so, okay, looks like we're back. Anyway, as I was saying, they made a big show of taking him from Trump Tower to the courthouse with 30,000 police officers deployed, which is really odd considering that like De Blasio basically, fired a bunch of police, and a bunch more police basically like quit. So I doubt that there were actually 30,000 cops there, but you need the narrative to make it look worse than it actually is. So they got Trump arraigned. They made, they had Trump like take a mugshot. They haven't released it to the public yet, and I'll tell you the reason why they haven't released it to the public yet, folks, is because they know that if that mugshot gets released into the public, people are going to be making memes out of it. It's going to be on T-shirts, posters. It's going to be like the Frank Sinatra mugshot, where instead of making Trump seem devious and evil, it's going to make him look like a badass and cool. And people are going to Photoshop it to make it look like a rap album or something. I mean, that was, I just mentioned Frank Sinatra. Like, that was one of the things, when Frank Sinatra was younger, I guess he got arrested for like breaking and entering in Hoboken, New Jersey, in some shop. And so they took his mugshot, and he was just starting out as like a singer at the time. And they were like, well, that's going to be the end of this kid's career. He's been arrested, so the music world isn't going to accept him anymore, and he'll be done for. Frank Sinatra wound up becoming like one of the greatest singers of all time, and that mugshot is like iconic. I did at one point actually have a poster of it, but yeah, you would think that they would learn something about iconography from that incident, but I guess not. So if they want to make Trump into a martyr, they're just gonna make him more popular. But anyway, after this big show and dance of making Trump out to be, a bad guy, Trump made a statement to the press, soon after, and he had this to say regarding the prosecution and his whole case. People thought he were gonna stay silent, but I guess not. I mean, I certainly didn't expect him to slow down or anything. But this was Trump's statement after the arraignment yesterday. So anyway, here's cut number one. Let's play the tape.
I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen.
Hours after he surrendered on criminal charges, former President Donald Trump addressed his supporters from his Mar-a-Lago resort. It was an unprecedented day in American history as Trump faced a judge in New York, the first U.S. president to be indicted by a grand jury. But he's made it clear that won't deter his campaign for another term in the White House. Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, alleging that he paid off Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal to keep them from going public about extramarital affairs before the 2016 election. Now, the former president has remained defiant, railing against the DA prosecuting him and the New York judge hearing the case. And again, Trump says this will not keep him from his campaign. A question so many have: can he beat these charges against him while beating his opponents for the White House? How easy or how difficult will it be to defend him? We asked our legal experts about the case.
I think it's going to be an uphill battle for the state, no doubt.
What do you believe the defense's argument will be?
I think what you'll instead probably see is a lot of arguments about that Michael J. Cohen, or that Attorney Cohen, at that time went rogue. He was doing things that we didn't direct him to do.
Well, a former federal prosecutor tells us that this case ends up in the hands of a jury. Trump's defense team could try to motion for a change of venue or to recuse that jury.
It's a framework for assessing risk.
It's a complete fraud.
It's much more of a risk mitigation tool.
It's a fraud because it's not better for shareholders. It's not better for stockholders.
A movement has been growing to unite corporations.
And yeah, I forgot. I forgot. I canceled. I canceled YouTube Red, so I no longer have access to that. That wasn't. I thought I had the clip of Trump's actual speech queued up, but let me see. Let me see if I can find that here, folks. Hold on. I might also, let's see. Okay. Okay, I think I found it. Hold on. Rumble has ads too. It's not as bad as YouTube. But there. Okay, let's see here. All right, so I have audio of Trump's actual speech from Mar-a-Lago here queued up on Rumble. The audio quality isn't great, but it's as good as I could find here. So anyway, here's a cut of Trump's speech from Mar-a-Lago after being indicted in New York. And so just give me a sec and we will click through to that. Okay. Excellent. All right, clip number 1, or no, clip number 2. Let's roll the tape.
Thank you very much, everybody. We have to save our country. God bless you all. God bless you all. And I never thought anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it. From the beginning, the Democrats spied on my campaign. Remember that? They attacked me with an onslaught of fraudulent investigations. Russia, Russia, Russia. Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Impeachment hoax number 1. Impeachment hoax number 2. The illegal and unconstitutional raid on Mar-a-Lago, right here. The lying to the FISA courts, the FBI and DOJ relentlessly pursuing Republicans, the unconstitutional changes to election laws by not getting approvals from state legislators, the millions of votes illegally stuffed into ballot boxes and all caught on government cameras. And just recently, the FBI and DOJ in collusion with Twitter and Facebook in order not to say anything bad about the Hunter Biden laptop from hell, which exposes the Biden family as criminals and which, according to the pollsters, would have made a 17-point difference in the election result. And we needed a lot less than that, like about 16.9. It would have been in our favor, not my favor, our favor, because our country is going to hell. And we remember the 51 intelligence agents who said Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. It didn't exist. It was Russian disinformation. Remember that? And that was all confirmed strongly by the FBI when they all knew that it wasn't Russian disinformation. And so much more. Our elections were like those of a third world country.
All right. This audio is terrible. All right. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, here's what we need, folks.
They're lying to the FISA courts.
Okay.
Save our country. God bless you all. God bless you all.
Okay, folks. Now,
And I never
here's
thought
Papa
anything like this could happen in America. Never thought it could happen. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it. From the beginning, the Democrats spied on my campaign. Remember that? They attacked me with an onslaught of fraudulent investigations. Russia, Russia, Russia. Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Impeachment hoax number one. Impeachment hoax number two. The illegal and unconstitutional raid on Mar-a-Lago, right here. They're lying to the FISA courts, the FBI and DOJ relentlessly pursuing Republicans, the unconstitutional changes to election laws by not getting approvals from state legislators, the millions of votes illegally stuffed into ballot boxes and all caught on government cameras. And just recently, the FBI and DOJ in collusion with Twitter and Facebook in order not to say anything bad about the Hunter Biden laptop from hell, which exposes the Biden family as criminals and which, according to the pollsters, would have made a 17-point difference in the election result. And we needed a lot less than that, like about 16.9. It would have been in our favor, not my favor, our favor, because our country is going to hell. And we remember the 51 intelligence agents who said Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. It didn't exist. It was Russian disinformation. Remember that? And that was all confirmed strongly by the FBI when they all knew that it wasn't Russian disinformation. And
Okay, now some of you guys might be asking, why is Trump repeating these same talking points over and over again? We've heard of this all before. Why is he doing it again? Well, I've taken multiple public speaking classes, and one of the things that is often taught is when you want to really hit a point home, which for Trump is that he's under attack, the best thing to do is to repeat your point over and over again until it is cemented in. And for us who voted for him once and are most likely going to vote for him again if given the chance, we already know what's going on. But there are a lot of normie people out there who are now paying attention to this. They might not be familiar with what's been going on, but this trial, this witch trial, has really, it's garnered a lot of attention from people who might not have been paying attention before. So my theory is that Trump is being smart on this and just alerting more people as to what's really going on. red pilling them, if you will. And joining us now is Whitfield's Report co-host and contributor Shmuley.
I think that this is one of the best speeches Trump has given in ages. The
I
reason why I say that is that not only did he have a lot of new eyes, and like you expertly said, Donald Trump is going to reiterate things that maybe, your audience knows, but to them it would be relevant still, or maybe they had forgotten. But Donald Trump does well when he gives speeches that are simple truths, spoken in a
yeah,
way that the common man's going to keep up with. None of this pseudo intellectualism. Speaking to the people themselves, direct truths. That's when he's at its best. But I think what was really beautiful about the speech, this is after, he had been taken, after they had forced him to go down there. There's cops surrounding him. He's getting a mug shot. He's walking right into this lion's den. And yet he gives a speech not about himself. He gave a speech.
sorry there, folks. We got cut off there, I think. Okay.
Did they hear what we had to say? Or?
Something happened. We're back though. Anyway,
Oh, I'm just saying that what's profound is that he gave a speech about the country and about us rather than him. And I think that it was deliberate, and I think that was one of the best moves that one could make in his situation.
Yeah. Well, and Trump has to do that now too, right? Because I mean, he can't. He's still not on Twitter, although I guess he can go on there. But like, no one in the media is going to give him a fair shake, um, anymore to respond to this. So,
I mean,
so
on the
yeah,
trial, yes. In general, no.
yeah. What
I
is
mean,
your
you would be surprised the amount of people who are just. I mean, even that don't like him that are like, hey, this is absurd, right? This is not the way.
yeah? Well, no, and I think it's going to blow up. I think it's going to blow up in the Democrats' face, doing this. So, one thing I wanted to ask, one thing I'm curious about, what do you think is, I mean, I already kind of laid out why I think the Democrats are doing this, but why do you think the Democrats are, what do you think their end game is in regard to this?
I mean, I think that's kind of a poorly formulated question. I mean, do I think Joe Biden said do this? I don't think so, really. I think that this prosecutor, and he's surrounded by people who are biased against him. He's got family that are biased against him. He quit. He left his position at a very lucrative law firm in order to get Donald Trump. This guy ran on it. I mean, he's motivated. I don't think there's some broader thing, and I think that if it had gone up the chain of command, so to speak, that people would have said no, don't do that.
Interesting.
I mean, that's my firm belief because I don't see how this makes sense. You're putting him back into the media, so that counters the uh, strategy that they were kind of developing of ignoring him, right? They were never really good at it, to be fair, right?
No, they sucked at it.
But that would have been a better strategy, and at least for the Democrats, yeah. I mean, this sort of forces the sort of neocons or whatever to like come to his defense.
I now see. I had a theory. I don't think that Biden endorsed. I don't think that Biden gave the go ahead on this. I don't think anyone in the party necessarily did, but I definitely think that in their minds this might have been like a Hail Mary because they know that Biden is terrible as president, that he's, you know, horrendous. And so they need to, remind people, hey, Orange Man bad.
Yeah. Yeah, but like their greatest ally in that would be the sort of neocons, right?
Yeah, maybe.
And this harms their chances. This decimates their chances.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're Joe Biden, you want Nikki Haley to be your opposition, right?
Yeah.
You want somebody like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Joe Biden's kind of a weak candidate. So, I mean, even then, but like, you don't want Donald Trump to run against you. Persecuting him is not a good idea. But I mean, you got to remember that these people have wholly in their mind dehumanized him and by extension
Right.
his entire like fan base, right? So like they're just like, oh no, this is a good thing and it'll finally be over or whatever. Like I think the people actually doing this are kind of deranged. I don't think they're like smooth political operators.
No, they're not because it's backfiring on them tremendously. And the other thing that I said is, if they had just like left Trump alone, he might not. I think it would have been better for them, for them just to not antagonize them. But I think the fact that they were antagonizing him even after the 2020 election, I think that just encouraged him to run further out of spite,
Yeah, they've
more
done
than
this.
anything.
They've done this since the primaries the first time around. I mean, this is the thing. This is the beauty. This is why I want him to become president again. If you think of like people's motivations by like the conscious mind that's rational and makes decisions, right? And it's a little dude and he's on top of an elephant. And the elephant is all of your emotional and moral foundations. When Donald Trump shows up, that elephant is fucking running, right? And no matter how much that dude on that elephant tries to get it to turn or do something rational, they can't help it. And because the institutions are so lopsided in their moral foundation, they're so controlled by the left. All of these institutions just destroy their credibility by doing ridiculous, short-sighted nonsense. So if you're
Yeah,
against the institutions, you want him there specifically so that they'll behave in this exact manner.
yeah, no. I mean, honestly, the way you deal with the day you deal with a troll is to just troll them back, which is what they needed to do with Trump because Trump is like a literal he's a living meme, but they don't know how the left doesn't know how to meme, right? That's the saying. And so they literally don't know how to deal with them.
Well, they can't help it. It's the moral foundation, and everybody has this to a degree. I mean, you definitely see this with conservatives and stuff, right? Like there are times where their moral foundations are just so offended that they can't help themselves. And that's how people lay traps for each other, right? But I don't even think it was a trap laid for them. I think it's just it's as true as the sunrise, right?
Yeah.
That he has this effect on them. He really upsets their moral foundation, and they can't. You got to remember, they don't know how you and I think. They can't put themselves in our shoes, see him, and go, I understand why they feel that way. So they're flying in the complete dark. Why do you like this guy? This guy's the worst. This gets dangerous. This is bad. And then they're intuitive. They're Ryder starts coming up with excuses, right?
Yeah. Well,
For why the
they
elephant's going that way. Well, actually, the only way to save democracy is to cover up news stories, censor people, ban people. The only way to save democracy is to persecute him. The only way to save democracy is to, you know, cheat, you know, by not
yeah.
certifying the fucking mail-in ballots the right way, or not certification rather, but implementing changes to election laws without going through the legislature.
Yeah, well, the latest Dem cope on Twitter I've seen is that this trial is actually a good thing because it will prove that Trump is a criminal and no one's gonna want to vote for him.
Yeah,
You know,
see, that's
and
derangement.
yeah, no, well, yeah, it's derangement. It's also idiocracy, like full blown. I mean,
Well, the trials are fair except this time, but not in other times, right? And you could say that this is like a well, wouldn't that be true? And that would be a position that I hold. Yeah. But like these are people who talk about everything being systemically corrupt and bad, right?
of course.
It's the thing, don't do power analysis, don't talk about how corrupt the system is when it doesn't benefit us. It's like, yeah, isn't that convenient, right?
Well, they also picked a convenient time to focus on this because, right, like I'm not saying that they've done all this on purpose, but it is convenient that this show trial is going on right after there's a mass shooting that has happened, and so they're trying to distract people from that
Yeah.
too.
I mean,
So
obviously that went against the narrative. That gets rabbit holed, right? There's not. I mean, there was some protests from the anti-gun people, but you know that doesn't get amplified. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's so drawn out. I mean, at this point, all of these protests and stuff. I mean, they only really get big when the media gets behind them, right? When there's a political
right,
push. Otherwise, these amount to nothing, right?
right. Well, and then you have and then you have like the and then you have the quote unquote oath keepers who are doing stuff. I don't actually think those are actual oath keepers. I think those are feds, like just planted there to make the right look bad, so to speak.
Yeah, it's
And
it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell in this environment because there's so much nonsense, right? We're just in an ocean of lies and manipulations.
yeah, so
But there's
oh,
there's oh, go ahead.
overall though, I think that this I think I actually think that this is going to work out really well for Trump in the long run because now not only have the Dems gone a step too far in prosecuting him, but like they've basically done exactly what Trump said that they would do, which is to prosecute him for basically a nothing burger. So this this whole case is it's it's over campaign finance related to Stormy Daniels, which you know that was found to have never happened in the first place. So um
So basically, what you're telling me is that you know people came with allegations, and then the campaign well, rather, his lawyer paid them to not make it a scandal, and that this was misallocated because it should have been reported as a campaign fund. Wow, you really caught him. I mean, this is typical show me the man, I'll show you the crime stuff, and it's not surprising that we've devolved into this. I mean, this is the way
Well,
third world countries work. And ironically, they want to talk about institutions that threaten democracy. What happens next time when a president, if they lose, gets thrown in prison for fucking misdemeanors that become felonies? What happens next time when someone's standing there with a lot of political power and in the back of their mind they have to choose between making a move to stay in power or relinquishing that power? You can say what you want, and people bring up like the lock her up thing. Donald Trump didn't do that, and he specifically cited not going after Hillary Clinton and these people because of what it would do to the country. And it's for that very reason.
Yeah.
That is the reason why we give leniency to a lot of politicians. Now, there's ups and downs to that. One of the main problems is that this idea of like equality under the law gets dicey when you're dealing with politicians.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I think a precedent that it requires somebody to really have committed a felony or something really egregious. But I will say that if Donald Trump becomes president again, he should extradite George W. Bush to stand trial at The Hague for war crimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he is wanted.
Yeah, that definitely, I mean, I actually think that would be funny too, just because of how much the Bushes hate Trump.
Well, if we're just yeah, I mean, if we're just gonna ignore all precedent, if we're just gonna do ridiculous persecutory stuff like that, well, I guess that's par for the course. As well as any sort of prosecutor anywhere in the country could decide that they're gonna make a name for themselves by arresting someone of the opposition. And this is the way that games are played among elites in a third world low trust country.
Well, I mean, this trial specifically is even stupider because the alleged hush money that Trump paid to Stormy Daniels, nothing happened because Stormy Daniels never actually had an affair with Trump. She actually had to pay him for slander. So because it never happened.
In the
right?
time
So
in the time of the Roman Republic, right? You had this, right? You had powerful people battling it out. Oh, I'm all for Caesar. I'm for whoever. Wealthy people or people in general would write them letters, give them money and support. Because if you were known to have supported the other guy, well, when your guy takes power, they would arrest you or kill you and take all of your property and take your money and give it to their supporters. Caesar broke this cycle because he had his men take a list. They found a list of people who had supported the opposition. He had them douse it in, I believe it was olive oil, and set it on fire because everyone was Caesar's man.
right.
This is the kind of nasty third world shit that you get when you just destroy all of these sort of precedents, right? And if you want to play that game, I mean, that's a game we can play. If that's just the way the game runs, that's just the way the game runs. But it is a sad thing for our country. It's good for our movement ultimately that this is happening. I'm not black-pilled at all on this. I'm not upset. I expected something like this to happen. This is well in line with my reasoning for supporting him. But it is regrettable that we're crossing this Rubicon. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, my thought on all this is, people have been saying that Trump, oh my God, Trump's going to push us into a second civil war. But in reality, we already kind of are in a second civil war. It's just like a Cold War, so to speak, because, now it's like now it's literally coast versus coast. You have 50% of the country who likes Trump, and then a little less than 50 that seems to hate his guts. And but I think, like, I don't know, I think we're kind of in a cold civil war, but I think at some point, if Trump does get into power again, um maybe he'll do something like, we need to come together. And maybe, I don't know if he'll go after his political opponents, especially since he didn't go after Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. But I mean, I'm saying that there will be cries for it, and he will not have that same argument, right? If he gets back in there, he can't say, "Well, I don't want to cross that." That would be a terrible precedent for the country if they did it to him.
yeah.
I mean, certainly, like I said, I'd like to end the cycle, but there's something, that I guess that's my elephant, right? With the analogy of the elephant in the rider. The idea of George Bush spending the rest of his life in prison for war crimes, that just that makes me smile. That would be beautiful. That would be one of those things where I crack a cold one open, cold soda, and just take a long sip, right?
We were in a 20-year war over nothing, basically.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Go tell me how many people at our finest hour as a country, right, in Fallujah died.
I I don't actually know the stats on that.
Yeah, it's a good number. It's a good number of fucking people, right? A lot of young men lost their lives fighting in Fallujah, a battle that could have been completely avoided in a war that was based on lies, but they arose to the occasion. At any other time, we would have just carpet bombed the damn city to the ground and then napalmed it and then rolled into the rubble. But no, we had to go in there to find the specific guys, right? We had to go in there with rules of engagement, and those men fought valiantly and won.
Well, yeah. Well, it took them forever to find Osama bin Laden too, which is, you know, supposedly that's what this whole war on terror thing was about initially.
Yeah,
But
I feel like we're getting a bit off topic now. I apologize. I just think it needs to be said that Fallujah was one of America's greatest moments, right?
yeah, I mean, definitely of the most, of the more recent era, it is. So, the other thing that I do find interesting is that, Biden is so, he seems almost antsy for us to get into a war with Russia. And I think that's another reason why, like, again, I don't think that the deep state planned this for the trial to happen, but I definitely think that, like, if they can keep Trump out of office, they can, keep warmongering for sure, because they know that once Trump gets into office, that shit is not going to happen.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I don't know. I don't know what'll be offered. You know, he's not one of the guys that run around talking about that part of it, right?
I know that John Bolton tweeted something out about like this what Trump did is a threat to democracy, and it's like no, what John Bolton does every day is like a threat to world
Humanity.
peace. Yeah, it's a threat
Yeah.
to world peace, basically.
A threat to
So
innocent children and our sons and our sons in the military. Yeah, that's what John Bolton threatens.
yeah,
I mean, you're talking about a guy who's mad at Donald Trump because they laughed at him in meetings. I mean, he John Bolton said that like he came into a meeting and everybody was presenting their intel brief and what they wanted to do, and Donald Trump pointed at him and said, "What's your solution? War?" And then everyone laughed at him. And he wrote this in his book like this is a bad thing. It's like, yeah, no, you were brought in so that the Iranians didn't know what you're doing, so that they looked like, oh well, maybe he's taking advice from this neocon, right? Maybe we better straighten up. So he's butthurt about it.
yeah. Well, they seemed really hurt when Trump droned that one general who was going to
Soleimani.
yeah, they were really butthurt about that because they thought that Trump was going to start a war with Iran when it turns out that he actually prevented a war with Iran. Um,
Well, I mean, the dude was killing U.S. troops or whatever. You know,
well, yeah,
this is the thing. You know, it's like, should we be out of a lot of these places? Yes. Should we let this guy plan a literal attack that's going to imminently kill our guys? No. Right? Like we all can accept
right.
that nuance, I hope.
I certainly can. Well, I think. I mean, I think that's kind of the show of force that we need is, hey, don't fuck with us, and we won't need to go to war.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
but I mean this all goes back to the failure of Bush, which led to the failure of Obama, which was we invaded Iraq, turned it into a democracy. Guess what? They're the same type of Muslim as the Iranians. And so what happens is they vote in a government that supports Iran, and then we have to leave. And so now Iran has Iraq. And you can look at all of these, all of the Obama years as trying to make up for that, to balance power because of the mistake of Iraq. And it just led to the tremendous death of so many people. I mean, look at Syria. That place is still a war-torn shithole. Why is it a war-torn shithole? Because we tried to overthrow the Assad regime. Like we tried to overthrow all of these countries. And pretty much other than I think Tunisia, right? All of them were like failures, like horrific bloodbath failures. Libya with the return of open human slavery, right?
yeah,
Syria with ISIS and these terrible people. I mean, we gave our weapons to ISIS because they were moderate rebels, right? Just like we gave weapons to Al Nusra and Al Qaeda in order
yep,
to fight that, because Syria is friends with the Iranians, who's friends with Russia. It's just a clusterfuck, and I think that Americans intuitively feel it in their heart, and there's a lot of resentment for it, but very few of them know the details.
well,
I
yeah.
find that regrettable.
I mean, as much as I love Reagan, one of the things that I think the Reagan administration kind of fucked up on um, was aiding Afghanistan against Russia back in the day because I mean, we basically created Al Qaeda that way.
Yeah, yeah. I, I would be split on that, right?
Yeah. I am kind of like a Cold War buff, but even so, the Afghanistan chapter is kind of a little iffy. Like I'm
I mean,
not too.
I'll sort of defer to your knowledge, but like the Afghanistan war was very costly for the Soviets, correct?
Oh yeah, it totally was. There was there was no as like look as far as I can tell, like there was no reason for us to supply them weapons anyway because they were already kicking the crap out of the Russians.
Okay, is that so? I thought the helicopter. I mean, we gave them Stinger missiles, right? That was our main contribution,
Yeah,
and
that was like our main that was our main contribution. But the other problem was, and I'm not sure, I don't think this was a Reagan decision. I think it was more like Bush's decision as VP. One of the things was after the Soviets got kicked out of after the Soviets got kicked out of Afghanistan, some of the more moderates in the Taliban were like, "Hey, we need money for schools and whatnot. Can you guys send that to us?" And Bush was basically like, "Nope, we can't spare the funds." And Reagan didn't put his foot down with that, and so they got pissed, and all these splinter groups like started to form, and that's how we got Afghanistan today, as near as I can
yeah,
tell.
yeah,
So
I could,
again,
yeah,
it's all the Bush's fault. So
yeah. I mean, I could definitely see that. I, I don't know. I'm not going to say that the aiding of the Mujahideen against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan was necessarily the wrong call. Um,
no, no, but
I
the fact,
get with hindsight, it's immense cost, right? And I understand your point, but I do think that it was probably very important to the fall of the Soviet Union, which I think, um, I think is actually better for humanity than like um, Iraq, Afghanistan, and like 9/11 was bad
yeah.
for
Well, no,
humanity.
well, let me rephrase that a little bit. I mean, I don't think the U.S. helping the Mujahideen was necessarily bad. I think us helping the Mujahideen during wartime, but then not helping them rebuild was the
Okay.
fucked up thing.
Okay, so you're saying just how it was handled in general. I can understand that. Yeah. Well, you got to remember
Yeah,
that the Taliban were not too fond of Al Qaeda, right?
no,
Osama bin Laden's main objective was to draw the United States into Afghanistan. Now you can understand why the Taliban, having set up a Muslim extremist country in Afghanistan, were not too fond of the Americans invading them. And
exactly.
these people are not Afghans. Um, but there was no excuse for us to allow mission creep to such a degree that we remained there for 14 years and thought that we were going to, by the end of it, install Western democracy and our culture on a bunch of religious tribal people in a unindustrialized nation.
Right.
That is an absurd idea, and one that I actually find is just inherently evil. I think it's evil to invade a group of people and attempt to sort of undermine their culture and force yours upon them because you're so good as an invading force.
Yeah, now I do in hindsight. When I was a kid, I was like, well, what's the wrong with that? Like, doesn't every country want to be America? But then as I grew older, I'm like, oh no, not at all. So
Well, if like, you know, if our foreign policy was like, hey, Afghanistan, you should like have trade with us and you should like help maybe set up rule of law so that people can invest or something like that would be different, right? It's the act of literally sending men with guns and tanks taking a place and then deciding that you're going to make its people uh, adopt your culture, your values. That is wrong.
yeah,
Now, if we had just invaded, looked for Al Qaeda, fought Al Qaeda, if the Taliban got in our way, we fought them too, then that's one thing, right? And we're like, oh, I guess he went to Pakistan. We got to leave or something.
yeah, but they didn't do that. So
Yeah. And once again, I mean, it's like the one out of the two wars that we actually won in quotation mark, right? And the government that we created still stands is friends with Iran. So that was great. That
yeah,
was great. We took Iran's main rival, who they literally fought a bloody trench and gas war with, and made them friends.
yeah, smooth move.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we just got rid of Saddam, and when we did, he said that radical Islamists would take power.
And sure enough, they did.
ISIS
Yeah,
arose.
yeah. Well, Saddam was a bad guy, no doubt. But again, it's one of those things like the U.S. when they took out Saddam, it left like a giant power vacuum, right? And
Yeah.
that's similar to my point about about um the U.S. helping the Afghans kick out Russia in the 80s, right? Is yeah, the Soviets went away, but afterwards the US didn't do anything to guarantee that something else wouldn't arise in Afghanistan. So a
Well,
power vacuum.
what I'm seeing, do you know the acronym like weird? I'd have to look it up real quick.
No, I've heard of I've heard of snafu, which is what this country is in right now.
Yeah, so weird stands for Western educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
it's used in psychology because when you study people that meet that criteria, they have moral foundations that are very unique. They're very unlike other people in the world. And I guess what I'm getting at is that I saw towards the end of Afghanistan and now with Ukraine and our foreign policy that these people have way outsized influence on our foreign policy, first. And second, they see imperialism and killing people and strong arming countries into adopting their values based on moral foundations that other people in the world don't share as acceptable. And that's the thing I'm saying that's detestable, right?
Yeah.
Now, one could say, well, aren't you a bit hypocritical? You supported in the past when America was against communism and used force. But I would say that there's a difference, and that difference was, for instance, South Korea did not have the government structure of the United States. South Korea, in many ways, did not share our values, but we supported them because they were fighting against communism. Vietnam, We did not demand that Vietnam adopt all of our values, right?
Right.
They were fighting communism. So, I mean, I think there's a difference there. There's a difference in that we tolerate people's differences in their own countries and their ability to make their own laws and have their own culture. We just understand that communism actually, like now these weird people have, the communist bloc at the time was willing to use force, kill people in order to try to instill its values upon people and destroy their culture. So I think that communism is a unique threat, and that's why I would say that it's not hypocritical of me.
Right. Well, I also think that at least when Vietnam started, like I've heard theories that when Vietnam started, it was not intended to go on for as long as it did. In fact, like the one thing I heard from Alex Jones like years and years and years ago was that JFK wanted to end Vietnam early, and then that's when the powers that be took him out because they wanted Vietnam to be an endless war.
I mean, if you have proof of that, somebody in chat or something wants to link me something, I'll read it. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what Alex Jones said like 15 years ago.
Yeah,
So.
well, I don't take what he says as gospel, right? Like,
No, neither do I.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that he said that have been right, but usually, like, he's linking to a source, right? Like, you can go look at the source. I mean, I will give that to Infowars. Despite their like crazy antics, if you go on their website, usually they have a source at the bottom, unlike New York Times.
Yeah.
But no, I think that the Gulf of Tonkin was kind of a false flag. I think that's been proven. I am, I guess, a bit of a revisionist in that I do think that that was justified, first and foremost, because I think that we needed further involvement in that war to defeat communism. I think that we would have won that war if it were not for the media. And
thank you.
Walter
I've been saying that for
Cronkite,
years.
Walter Cronkite, who we now know is a communist, he had empathy for communism. He supported it. He used his news program to demoralize people in the United States.
Yep.
We know that that basically the left and all of these student organizations, literally with the help of Vietnam, by the way, like the fucking North Vietnamese, acted as a third rail to demoralize America. And it was effective.
Yeah.
Now, there is some blame because the United States did not fight in Vietnam as it had fought in World War II and as it had fought in Korea, which was to carpet bomb the major cities and destroy all of the infrastructure of the country that they were at war with. You win the air war, you decimate the land. I mean, there was some bombing of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, but not the cities.
Right.
We should have done that. Now, to be fair, the logic behind that was that we were scared that if we pushed them to a certain point, that China would have invaded, like in Korea, and pushed us out. So that's a fair point too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that actually is a fair point. Well, the other thing I've heard too is that we would have is that like supposedly Nixon had a plan to like he actually had a winning strategy, and then Watergate happened, and that was that. So
I think that if Richard Nixon could see what they've done to Donald Trump now, he would have said, impeach me, bitch. I got enough votes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he was really a guy who was like, this is bad for the country. You know? And Pat Buchanan, which obviously worked with him in the White House, said this. I mean, Buchanan's view was don't resign. But Nixon was adamant that it was bad for the country.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is that Nixon did nothing wrong. I've actually heard uh, some guy confess to that there was that Watergate was an inside job to basically make Nixon look bad. But
well, the thing is that the CIA knew about it. We know
yeah.
that from declassified stuff. CIA didn't out him. And if you go look at it, his impeachment was about his cover up. Now, if you read kind of what he was saying happened, was he told, look into this. There's a vault somewhere that's got incriminating information on a bunch of people. Right?
Yeah.
So these guys are like, I'm gonna break in. And then they get caught, more or less, right? And he's like, well, these are people under me. I owe a responsibility not to throw them under the bus.
Right. So he stood up for his people then.
Well, because the buck stops with him. I mean,
mm-hmm.
Nixon was an incredibly stubborn man who, if you go read the interviews for him, you know, I mean, he was like there with I believe it was President Eisenhower and stuff. These military general type guys. I mean, you got to remember. So Nixon's view of the presidency was very like immense responsibility. The buck stops with me.
Right. No,
yeah.
I'm a Richard Nixon fan, which you know,
love him too.
That pisses people off because of the whole Watergate thing, but people don't actually understand what that was about. So fully.
Well, openly defending Richard Nixon against the lies that have been spread against him in the history books seems to really upset boomers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my dad and I have gotten into huge arguments about that. So
well, it's part of like the boomer truth package. It's the thing that they all seem to believe is that Richard Nixon was bad because of Watergate, and then they believe that like everyone who went to Vietnam basically was drafted when that's not the case. It increased in the later years, the amount of people, but
yeah,
the majority of people fucking signed up. Okay, they weren't all drafted.
No, I know that. I've met several people. I've met several gentlemen who, I mean, now they're old, but yeah, they volunteered. So
yeah, and I mean, I can have some empathy because a lot of these people, you know, they did lose a loved one or they know somebody who came back all fucked up. Shell shock is real. I have the utmost respect, but a lot of these people, they believe nonsense. Their adamant view of history is just false. They think Walter Cronkite was some good, objective guy. We know he was a fucking red. You know?
Yeah.
Like even a bunch of like conservatives who would be on board with us, right? Like they're baby boomer conservatives. They're going to sit there and tell you, well, we didn't have this left wing media lying about president back in the day. We had Walter Cronkite.
Well,
who do I sound like?
Well, the thing of it is like there was as much access to information back then. So like that is one good thing now we can look up alternative stuff. Like
Yeah.
no one had any reason to. I'm not defending I'm not defending Walter Cronkite because I agree with you. He was a piece of shit. So, and the
Well,
fact that
if in the future, right, we find out that Tucker Carlson was a neo-Nazi, right? Or like, I don't know, a radical jihadist extremist, right? I think
that would be hilarious just for the memes.
right? Like, I think that you and I in the future would be interested in that information. We'd be like, oh, damn, wow, we were wrong.
Yeah.
That's interesting, right? These people just get mad. You would think that they would be the target demographic about like, oh, well, the CIA knew about Watergate. Well, what does this mean? Like, you would think there would be some intellectual curiosity, but like, no, this is the narrative that they all seem to have.
Yeah.
I think Zoomers might end up with that same thing. Like, 80 years from now, we're like, well, George Floyd was choked to death, or something like that.
What are you talking 80 years from now? They have that narrative now.
I know, but I'm saying they might still hold it, right? Like we're gonna be like teaching our grandkids in school, like,
Oh yeah.
Baby boomer history has been like standard teaching up until like what now? It's like just going away or something. I mean, all I learned in school was like civil rights, Vietnam, fucking all this shit. Like we learned very little about World War II.
Yeah. I did, but that's because my grandparents were from the greatest generation, literally.
Yeah.
So it really sparked my interest. So
yeah. I mean, I individually outside of school was very obsessed with like History Channel, and there was all kinds of shows on the Iraq War and Fallujah and stuff like that.
yeah.
So that did, I compared to a lot of people my age or whatever, grew up looking up to those guys, And I think that
Yeah.
that does still play a role in when I'm talking about politics. A lot of times I'll bring up Iraq and Bush as sort of uniquely bad. I mean, I do bring up Obama and his evil, but like in my mind, 9/11, the Iraq War, all of this stuff was when I was literally a child. It was in the forefront while my mind was still developing.
No, same here. 9/11 was the reason why I got into politics, in all honesty, because like my mom was literally helping me get ready for school when 9/11 happened. And then like like okay, so I don't know if you've heard this story, but like I always wanted to go to New York City when I was like really young because like that was where Marvel Comics was, and so I wanted to go, see where like Spider-Man lived and all of that stuff. So, but then 9/11 happened like that same year, and we weren't sure if our trip was going to be able to happen because of that. And long story short, we were like one of the first flights allowed back in for like my spring break that year. So like after 9/11, and you could still smell like the smell like burning steel where we were at. It was not like it was not pretty at all. But yeah, like just kind of being there and kind of the aftershock, it made me curious as to like politics and just the world in general. And that's kind of when I became not really red pilled, but I guess political pilled as a small youngin.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Iraq too, or not Iraq. I went to New York rather as a small child, and it was dirty, and I didn't really like it. I like the Statue of Liberty a great deal. Um, Empire State Building, one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever been in. Um, those two things I liked, but overall the city was dirty, and the men were wearing pink shirts, and I didn't like that when I was little. That was sus. I was not okay with that.
Shmuel was against the homos even then. So no, I actually like New York City. I've been there like 8 times in my life, but it's definitely changed from when Giuliani was mayor. That's for sure. The city actually used to be clean and nice, and now New York is reverting back to what it was in the 70s.
Cleaner. I mean, you got to remember that as like a kid, grew up in the country. You know what I mean? Like, I not super in the middle of nowhere, but like my family has land, and so being a small town kind of guy, especially as a child, I'm all of a sudden thrown into New York City. It was a nightmare. There's too many people. It was too loud. It was dirty. It was, there's just nothing good about it. Like I said, the men were wearing pink shirts. I mean, what kind of degenerate hellhole was this? That was my take when I was little. They didn't even have sweet tea, Sam.
I know that was the humanity that the inhumanity of that sweet tea was one of my greatest discoveries when I first came to Florida. I tried a sweet tea and I was like, fuck it, I'm moving here just for this.
Well, what happened was that my mother told me, hey, they're not going to have sweet tea up north, right? But I got there and I went to the restaurant right there near the Statue of Liberty. And I'm like, well, obviously at the Statue of Liberty, I can get a sweet tea. It's a fucking Statue of Liberty. They're going to have everything from America, right? They gave me an unsweet tea. It upset me deeply. That was my first sense of the decline of the United States.
Their idea of sweet tea is, as I'm sure you know, you just put sugar packets in tea and mix it.
Yeah. You make hot tea and then you put ice on it and then you squirt a lemon and then they give you a few sugar packets.
That's the idea of sweet tea.
Nah, I mean the way you make Schmooly sweet tea is you get it, you brew it like you're gonna do, but you throw just a little bit of green tea in.
Interesting.
It adds a little oomph.
Yeah, I'll have to try that.
Yeah, and I make it so it's like you gotta find that sweet spot. You get what I did there? You gotta find the sweet spot between like this is way too sweet. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna feel sick. This is like a syrup, and not enough sugar. You gotta.
Well. You need a. Well, the other thing is you need simple syrup and iced tea too.
Mm-hmm.
So you just can't put raw granulated sugar in sweet tea. Otherwise, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Well, you have to do it when it's hot. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't wait until you fucking chilled it and you have ice cubes in there.
But that's what people out west do, and it's awful.
Yeah. No, you got to get like powdered sugar.
Yeah.
So. Makes it easy to dissolve.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's, So that's my formative years, you know.
Yeah. Well, my formative years were in like, Colorado, kind of before it became Sterno country, but not like it was headed that way. But like I've embraced being a Florida man at this point. So it's way better than Colorado.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Florida's a great state, man. I think it's great.
So, any final thoughts on Trump and where this trial is going to go?
I think that that remains to be seen, and if I make predictions, I don't want to come across as an idiot,
Yeah, you're kind of where I'm at. Things remain to be seen. So, but anyway, well, I think that just does it for tonight's show. Unless you have anything you want to bring up. So,
I do not. I'm still trying to get guests for your show, and we'll see if some people reply.
I know. Well, I know that Max has that one has one guest who I don't want to mention yet, but it's a question of when. But
fantastic.
Yeah. So, all right, I think that'll do it for tonight. So, thanks for dropping in, Shmuley, and thanks to everyone else for tuning in. So, we'll see you on the next one, and we'll see you next week. So, take care, folks.
Thanks for listening to The Whitfield Report on the NGC Network. Please visit Sam's website at www.thesamwhitfield.com and support Sam on Patreon at patreon.com/Whitfield Report. Until next time, God bless, God save this great nation, and God, freedom, legacy, in that order.